and welcome to Penelope's Pitstop Story Time. Let's get started with a fun song. There was a tree out in the wood, the prettiest little tree that you ever did see. Now the tree was in a hole, and the hole was in the ground, and the green grass grew all around, all around. Yeah, the green grass grew all around. And on that tree there was a branch, the prettiest little branch that you ever did see. And the branch was on the tree, and the tree was in the hole, and the hole was in the ground, and the green grass grew all around, all around. And the green grass grew all around. And on that branch there was a flower, the prettiest little flower that you ever did see. Flower on the branch, and the branch on the tree, and the tree in the hole, and the hole in the ground, and the green grass grew all around, all around. Yeah, the green grass grew all around. Who can guess from the song we kicked off the episode with what we'll be talking about today? Those are some excellent ideas. Whoever said plants was absolutely right. In fact, I've got a special plant here today that I want to show you. This plant is special to me because many years ago, it was left behind in another student's dorm room where we were all attending college. The college year had ended in May, and I just couldn't leave this plant behind. Have any of you ever heard of a green thumb? Lots of folks remembering important facts today. Yes, a green thumb refers to someone who seems to have a knack for growing things. Well, my family often teases me, and rightfully so, that I have a black thumb because, well, plants seem to fare poorly with me. This must be a particularly hardy plant, though, because I've managed to keep it alive all this time. Now, whereas this is an indoor plant, I've also brought a cluster of flowers from an outdoor bush. Now, does anyone recognize what this is? What is it? You got it. It's a lilac. You know, the interesting thing about this is when I was living in Vermont, lilac bushes bloomed at the end of May, right around my birthday. But here in Virginia, lilacs are blooming now in March after the relatively warm winter that we've had. So the same kind of plant in one part of the world can bloom at a completely different time than one in another place, depending what part of the world they're grown in. I think that's fascinating. I'd like to talk a little bit about the functions of each part of a plant, and perhaps you could share with me what you already know. So I'll say a part and you fill in the blank if you can. Roots. Yes, the roots find water. Stem. That's right. Stems support the rest of the plant. How about leaves? You got it. Leaves soak up the sun and use it to make food for the entire plant. And last of all, the flowers. Flowers produce seeds. In the last episode, I mentioned that rhubarb is the stem of a plant and is often baked into fruit pies. Sunflower seeds make a delicious snack. And when it comes to rosemary, some of which I have right here, well, we use the leaves of rosemary. This type of plant is called an herb. Herbs are often used not only to season our food, but also for their medicinal properties. I wish you all could be here to smell some of these amazing plants. Just wonderful. You know, working in a garden not only gets us outdoors for some fresh air, but it can be very satisfying to tend to other living things and see them grow. Then there's the added bonus of how gardening can take our minds off our own troubles while we immerse ourselves in caring for something else. Even just admiring plants can be calming and soothing. For those of you living in cities, did you know there are such things as rooftop gardens? Why, when I was living in an apartment, I grew tomatoes out on my balcony. And of course, there are always parks to visit, herb gardens for your kitchen windowsill, and of course, houseplants to raise. I hope you'll all have a chance to interact with some plants soon, and I'd be glad to hear all about what you do on our new Penelope's Pitstop Storytime Facebook page. Stop by and write a comment to me. Now it's time for us to make some music together. One of the reasons I'm bringing back the water bottles today is because I have a new instrument to show you. It's called a shaker egg, and the sound it makes is like a maraca or a rattle. Listen. But you don't have to have a special shaker egg like this one that comes from a store. You can use our trusty old water bottle to make one of your own. I looked around my house to see what sorts of things I could put inside a water bottle to make that rattle sound. I started in my kitchen. This one has popcorn kernels in it. You could use anything hard like popcorn kernels or pasta, and that makes a pretty loud rattle sound. I wasn't sure I would always want to sound that loud, so I also tried some red lentils. You could also use rice. And when you load your water bottle up with something like that, it's a little quieter than our other sound. It just depends what you like. You'll notice that I don't need very much of either one of those things for it to make a great sound. Now, if you don't have anything like popcorn kernels, lentils, rice, or dried pasta in your pantry right now, you can also look for other things in your house. I looked in my craft supplies for some beads. These particular beads are made out of wood, but you could use plastic or anything you had on hand. And that's how they sound. I also had some Legos on hand. So I took some of the smaller ones that I was sure I'd be able to get back out of the bottle when I was done and put those in. So we are going to use these in order to play ourselves a little song right now. I'm going to use my shaker egg to start, and then you can use your water bottles that you've filled with different things. Now, after the first verse, I'm going to be standing up and doing some movements. This song talks about standing up, stamping your feet, clapping your hands, and turning your body around. So just follow along with me. Oats, peas, beans, and barley grow. Oats, peas, beans, and barley grow. Can you or I or anyone know how oats, peas, beans, and barley grow? First the gardeners sow their seeds, stand up tall and take their ease, stamp their feet and clap their hands, turn around to view their lands. Gardeners next water their seeds, stand up tall and take their ease, stamp their feet and clap their hands, turn around to view their lands. Gardeners then will hoe their weeds, stand up tall and take their ease, stamp their feet and clap their hands, turn around to view their lands. Last the gardeners harvest their seeds, stand up tall and take their ease, stamp their feet and clap their hands, turn around to view their lands. Back down for our shakers. Oats, peas, beans, and barley grow. Oats, peas, beans, and barley grow. Can you or I or anyone know how oats, peas, beans, and barley grow? Give it one last good shake. The story I have for you today was written by Hans Christian Andersen a long time ago. And it just so happens he wrote a number of fairy tales about plants. This is just one of them. There were once 5 peas in a pod. Since they were green and the pod was green, they naturally believed that the whole world was green. The pod and the peas within grew, and as they grew, they arranged themselves all in a row. The sun shone down and warmed the pod, and the rain made it clear and translucent. It looked mild and agreeable in broad daylight and dark at night, just as it should. As the peas sat there, growing bigger and bigger, they mused about what life had in store for them, for they felt there must be something yet for them to do. "Are we to sit here forever?" said one. "Won't we rot if we continue waiting?" asked another. "It has been such a long time," declared a third. "It seems to me there must be something outside," asserted a fourth. "I feel sure you are right," agreed the fifth. Well, weeks passed, and during that time, the peas in their pod faded to yellow. Then suddenly, they felt a pull at their pod. They'd been plucked by human hands, and the pod slipped inside a jacket pocket. "Now we shall soon be let out," said one. "I should like to know which one of us will travel farthest," said the largest pea, "and we shall soon see." And indeed, that was just what all of them wanted. While the pod bounced around in the jacket pocket as the human moved about, the peas' hopes rose that their private wishes might at last be granted. And what does a pea dream of? Well, we must remember that the peas' knowledge of their world was limited to what they experienced dimly through their protective pod. Now, the largest pea had often listened raptly to bird song, observing their shadows gliding over the pod, and longed to be among them. The next biggest pea had felt the sun warm the pod on many an afternoon and aimed to take a closer look. The middle-sized pea had heard the pitter-patter of rain on the pod, as well as the babble of a nearby brook, and craved contact with water. The fourth pea had smelled wonderful aromas that frequently permeated the pod's thick covering and yearned to discover their source. The smallest pea had no such desires and merely reassured itself again. What is to happen will happen. Pop went the shell, and the 5 peas rolled out into the bright sunshine. There they lay on a child's hand. What fine peas for my pea shooter," exclaimed the child, immediately putting one in and blowing it out. "Now I am flying out in the wide world to join the birds," shouted the largest pea in happy anticipation. "Catch me if you can." And it was gone in a moment. "I intend to head straight to the sun," said the next biggest pea, and away it went. "Off to get wet," proclaimed the middle-sized pea. "Ready or not, here I come," the fourth pea called. "What is to happen will happen," said the smallest pea quietly, and was shot out of the pea shooter with the rest. No doubt you'd like to know now what became of the peas? Well, the first did indeed land in a nest and was snapped up in the beak of a baby bird. The second had a glorious view of the sun for just a moment, and then in falling back to earth, it landed on the brim of a lady's hat, getting itself wedged between two decorative flowers. The lady in question was on her way to tea with the queen, and the pea never forgot that hour in the shimmering presence of royalty. The third, it must be said, did indeed soar the farthest before plopping into the brook, and rejoiced at being swept away in its strong current. The fourth bounced onto a windowsill and rolled it to a stop on a kitchen counter. The cook, bustling about there, spied it and added it to a fragrant soup. As for the smallest pea, it flew against an old board under an attic window and fell into a little crevice filled with moss and soft earth. The moss closed over the pea and held it captive. "What is to happen will happen," said the smallest pea once more. Within the little attic room lived a woman and her only daughter, not yet grown up and very weak. You see, for a whole year she had been sick, and it seemed she never got any better or worse. All day long the girl lay patiently in bed, while her mother, who was both strong and industrious, went out to earn money. Spring came, and early one morning the sun shone pleasantly into the attic room. Just as the mother was leaving for work, the sick girl fixed her gaze on the lowest pane of the window. "Mother," she exclaimed, "what can that little green thing be that's peeping in at the window? It's moving in the wind." So the mother stepped to the window and opened it. "Oh," she said, "there is actually a little pea that has taken root and is putting out its green leaves. How could it have got into this crack? Well, now here is a little garden to amuse yourself with." She muscled the girl's bed over nearer to the window so that her sick daughter might more closely observe the budding plant, and then went out to work. "Mother, I am going to be well," said the sick child later that night. "Why, the sun has shone in here so bright and so warm today, and the little pea is growing so fast that somehow I feel as if I am better too. I think I'll soon be able to get up and go out into the warm sunshine again." "I hope so," said the mother, but she wasn't certain. Nonetheless, she took a branch and propped up the green plant which had given her daughter so much pleasure, so that the pea tendrils might have something to twine about. She also used a piece of string to tie the stick to the windowsill at the upper part of the frame in order to help the plant stand fast and resist the wind. The plant shot up even more quickly after being shown such tender care. "A flower is coming," the mother cried out one morning. At last, she was beginning to believe that her daughter might actually be recovering, Why, for some time the child had been speaking more cheerfully, and during the last few days she had raised herself up for a few minutes each day to look with sparkling eyes at that little garden containing but a single pea plant. A week later, the girl was sitting up by the open window for an entire hour, smiling to see a pink pea blossom blooming at last. Why, the day was like a carnival to her. The happy mother said, "This plant has brought you joy and hope to me. In gratitude, let's celebrate our very own Pea Blossom Festival on this day every year from now on." And the girl, with the rosy hue of health upon her cheeks, clapped her hands in delight. The end. Here's a song that goes right along with the story you just heard. Let's begin with 5 fingers. 5 fat peas in a pea pod pressed. 1 grew, 2 grew, and so did all the rest. They grew and they grew and they did not stop. They grew so big that the pea pod popped. If you want to, you can do a little jump with that. I'm restricted a little bit by the fan above me, but I encourage all of you to jump on the pot. Let's do it again a little bit faster. Here we go with our 5 peas. 5 fat peas in a pea pod pressed. 1 grew, 2 grew, and so did all the rest. They grew and they grew and they did not stop. It grew so tall that the pea pod popped. All right, friends, it's time for us to fill another room in Grandma's dollhouse. I wonder if you can guess where Grandma relaxes after she's been out in the yard doing gardening. First, we have a rug for, you guessed it, the living room. This was crocheted by my Aunt Robin, the same person who made the quilt for the bed upstairs in Grandma's bedroom. If she's going to relax, she needs to have a nice, comfortable chair and even something to put her feet up on. This piece of furniture that goes with the chair is called an ottoman. Grandma likes houseplants too, so she always tries to keep something near her front door for when people come to visit. Grandma likes to know what time it is, so she keeps a grandfather clock. This clock has a door, and on the inside is a piece of the clock called a pendulum that swings back and forth and helps the clock to keep time. There's a table for under the staircase, and on the table is Grandma's radio.
What's a radio?
Well, that's how you can listen to news going on in the world and music, lots of things. Grandma also has goldfish, something she can watch when she sits in her chair. Now, if Grandma wanted to call anyone or get calls from her neighbors and family and friends, she might use her phone. Now, this particular kind of phone has a piece that Grandma would have used to listen with, and then a different piece that Grandma would have spoken into where other people could hear what was on her mind.
How do you play games on a phone like that?
I'm afraid that this phone doesn't have a way for people to play games on it. Instead, Grandma would have just had people come over to her house for a visit. I'm sure you know that trees have all the same parts that other plants do. They have their roots, they have their trunks, which is what we call the stem of a tree. There are branches and leaves. There are buds and fruit and flowers. So let's do a song that talks all about those different parts of a tree. It goes like this. Roots, trunk, branches, leaves, branches, leaves. Roots, trunk, branches, leaves, branches, leaves. Buds and fruit and flowers in the breeze. Roots, trunk, branches, leaves, branches, leaves. I think we should do that a little bit faster. Roots, trunk, branches, leaves, branches, leaves. Roots, trunk, branches, leaves, branches, leaves. Buds and fruit and flowers in the breeze. Roots, trunk, branches, leaves, branches, leaves. How about now we go as fast as we can? Ready, get set, go. Roots, trunks, branches, leaves, branches, leaves. Roots, trunk, branches, leaves, branches, leaves. Buds and fruit and flowers in the breeze. Roots, trunk, branches, leaves, branches, leaves. That's all the time we have for today, but I'll put out another show soon. Let's sing our last song as a way of saying goodbye to each other today. Love somebody, yes I do. Love somebody, yes I do. Love somebody, yes I do. Love somebody, but I don't know who. Love somebody, can't guess who. Love somebody, can't guess who. Love somebody, can't guess who. Love somebody, but I won't tell who. Love somebody, yes I do. Love somebody, yes I do. Love somebody, could be you. Love all growing things and love you too. Thanks for joining me at Penelope's Pit Stop Story Time. See you next time, friends.